Have you noticed how heavy the world feels lately? It's not just you. We're only a few years out from a global pandemic that cracked all of us open in ways we still don't fully understand. Personal trauma bubbled to the surface, but instead of having time to face it, we got swept right back into a world fueled by division. Hatred is the headline. Fear is the seasoning on everything. Corruption, chaos, scandal after scandal, like the ground itself can't hold steady anymore. And yet we keep pretending. Pretending that life has gone back to normal. Pretending we can slip back into our routines, our ambitions, our small talk. But deep down, you know it's not true. Something shifted. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Maybe you've felt it in your bones, the exhaustion that doesn't lift, the strange sense that you're moving through a play you no longer want to perform in. Families splitting apart over beliefs, friends ghosting each other over politics or ideology, a creeping anxiety about artificial intelligence, what it means for our jobs, our relationships, the way humans will even connect with each other in the future. It's like the world is demanding certainty while feeding us nothing but confusion. And maybe this is where awakening hits you, not in a yoga studio, not during a blissful meditation retreat, but in the middle of society, cracking down the middle. Awakening doesn't arrive with trumpets and fireworks. More often, it comes like silence. It strips away the old fire that used to push you. Suddenly the goals, the grind, the chase, none of it moves you anymore. And that's terrifying, isn't it? Because on the surface it looks like depression. It looks like you're lazy, unmotivated, stuck. People around you don't get it. They tell you to push harder, to get back to normal, to keep playing the game. But you can't, not anymore. Your soul won't let you. This is the part no one tells you about. Awakening is exhausting. And not just because of what's happening inside of you, but because of what's happening all around you. We're living in an age of burnout, stacked on top of trauma, stacked on top of fear. And when you wake up in the middle of that, when you stop participating in the illusions, you're left standing at the edge of something no one prepared you for. The void. The waiting room. That's what it feels like, isn't it? Like you're sitting there, holding a ticket, waiting for a number that never gets called. You've stepped out of the old world, but the new one hasn't begun yet. And here's the paradox. You know this is the only direction you can go in. You can't go back to sleep. You can't rejoin the game of illusions, even if you tried. And so you're left in this strange middle ground, awake, but unsure what to do with that awakening. I know this space because I'm in it too. It's not easy to admit that. Even now, I can feel the same exhaustion creeping into my own life. Some days it feels like I'm staring at the horizon of a future I can't predict, wondering if there will even be ground to stand on when we get there. And maybe that's why you're here, because you feel it too, the heaviness, the silence, the strange ache of being awake in a world that feels like it's burning down. You're not alone. And if you stay with me, I want to show you something Jung knew long before we did. That this exhaustion isn't failure. It's not depression. It's not proof that you're broken. It's the doorway to something deeper. But first, we have to understand why awakening doesn't ignite us the way we were promised. Why it empties us instead. Here's the paradox no one warns you about. Awakening doesn't make you more motivated. It makes you less. And not just less motivated in the I think I'll skip the gym way. I mean, existentially unmotivated. The to-do lists, the 5-year plan, the hustle playlists on Spotify, they all suddenly feel like background noise. You see through the game and can't force yourself to play anymore. Carl Jung understood this. He said, enlightenment doesn't come by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Sounds poetic until you realize what he meant. Once you've pulled the curtain back on the illusions, the fuel you used to run on, ego, ambition, competition, approval, burns out. Overnight, your tank runs dry. You didn't lose motivation. You lost the fuel source. That's the hidden problem. You're not actually broken. You're just running on a system that no longer works. Think about it. Most of us were raised to chase approval, like oxygen, get the grades, land the job, buy the house, be respectable enough to post pictures online so people think you're doing well. That's the persona Jung talked about. The mask we wear, so society applauds instead of questions us. But here's the thing, awakening rips off the mask. Suddenly you're not auditioning for anyone anymore. You're not desperate to be liked or successful or even understood. You see the game for what it is. And that's liberating until it's terrifying. Because without the mask, who are you? This is where people get stuck. They confuse the collapse of the old identity with the collapse of themselves. And to be fair, it feels like collapse. Your old motivations don't fit anymore. You can't squeeze back into them, no matter how hard you try. It's like being a character in a play who suddenly realizes the script is fake. You step off stage, but now you have no lines, no costume, no role. You're just standing there, staring at the audience, waiting for someone to tell you what to do next. Spoiler, no one does. This is where Jung's idea of individuation comes in, the process of becoming whole instead of just functional. Awakening empties you so that a deeper kind of motivation can eventually emerge. But first comes the void, the silence, the waiting room. And that silence is brutal in today's climate, isn't it? Because everywhere you look, the noise is deafening. Outrage sells. Division is currency. Fear is marketed like fast food. Even AI, which could have been our tool, is now our boogeyman. Half the internet says it's going to save us, the other half says it's going to steal our souls. Meanwhile, you're just trying to figure out how to get out of bed without caffeine. Okay, maybe with caffeine. Awakening might strip your ego, but it's not coming for your coffee. This is why it's exhausting, because you're not just carrying your own awakening, you're carrying it in a world and that's also unraveling. And here's the hidden root. Motivation, as you knew it, was never really yours. It was given to you, programmed into you, a set of shoulds disguised as destiny. Be successful, be admired, be chosen. That's not purpose, that's performance. Awakening burns that programming down. That's why it feels like nothing's left. Because for now, there really isn't. This emptiness isn't failure. It's transition. Ancient alchemy called this stage nigredo. The blackening, the psychological death, the caterpillar turning to soup inside the cocoon. Not a butterfly yet, but no longer what it was, just goo. And goo doesn't hustle, goo doesn't grind, goo doesn't chase, goo dissolves. That's what you're feeling right now, and that's what makes it sacred. Because here's the irony, the void you're in is not empty, it's full, but it's so full of unconscious material rising to the surface that your ego can't process it yet. The psyche slows you down on purpose so you can metabolize everything you've ignored. It's not a depression, it's digestion. Jung warned that our modern world has no tolerance for this stage. Stillness gets mistaken for laziness. Silence gets misdiagnosed as apathy. And so we self-judge. We panic. We try to force ourselves back into goals that no longer belong to us. But that's like trying to shove a butterfly back into a cocoon. It doesn't work, and honestly, it's a little gross. So here's the truth. What you're experiencing isn't the end of your story, it's the middle. You've lost the old fire because a new one is still gathering. And if you're feeling unmotivated, disoriented, or downright exhausted, it's not because you're weak, it's because your soul refuses to run on counterfeit fuel anymore. Now, the real question becomes, what happens if you stay in this space long enough to let the real purpose emerge? That's where we're heading next. Here's the dangerous part. Most people never recognize what this stage really is. Instead, they mistake it for failure. They panic and reach for the old fire again, the one made of ego, status, comparison, performance. They try to climb back into careers, identities, relationships that no longer fit. And at first, it works. They can reanimate the old persona like a puppet on strings. They can force themselves back into the script. But here's the consequence. It's hollow. They succeed, but it feels dead inside. They achieve, but it doesn't taste like anything. They look good on the outside, while quietly decaying on the inside. You can't unknow the truth. Once you've seen the illusion, you can't re-believe it. Not really. So what happens instead is exhaustion, layered on exhaustion. Because now you're trying to fake your own sleep while being wide awake. And pretending is the most draining game of all. That's one path. The second path is even trickier, bypass. This is when people convince themselves they're above it all. Nothing matters, it's all illusion, life is just a dream. And so they detach, they float. They convince themselves that their apathy is enlightenment. But it's not. Jung warned about this too. He called it inflation. The ego sneaks in through the back door, wearing a spiritual mask this time. It whispers, "You're beyond the messy human stuff. You don't need to feel, you don't need to care." And honestly, it looks good on Instagram. Pretty quotes over sunsets, high vibes only, detachment dressed up as wisdom. But underneath, it's still avoidance, still running from the shadow instead of integrating it. Bypassing is numbing. And here's the third consequence, the one that hurts the most. Some people collapse entirely. They assume something's wrong with them. They confuse sacred pause with clinical failure. They decide they're broken, depressed, defective. And that belief sinks them even deeper into despair. Maybe you've been there, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, whispering to yourself, "What's wrong with me? Why can't I care about anything anymore?" That's the heartbreak of not being told the truth. Because the truth is, this isn't failure, this is initiation. But when you don't know that, when no one tells you the void is part of the map, you'll spend years thinking you're lost. This stage is not the end, it's the threshold. Jung said the unconscious becomes unbearable when it rises into consciousness. That unbearable weight is what you're feeling now. It's not a malfunction, it's the system update. And here's what happens if you don't accept it. The psyche finds ways to get your attention. Burnout, illness, breakdowns, relationships that fall apart because you're still trying to perform an identity that's no longer real. I sometimes think of it like tectonic plates shifting under the ocean. If you cooperate, the landscape reshapes itself naturally. If you resist, you get earthquakes. And haven't we all felt the quakes lately? The sense that life itself is cracking at the edges? That's not just collective, it's personal, and it's happening inside you too. The void is sacred but dangerous if misunderstood. Because here's the paradox, the void is both medicine and poison. Handled consciously, it transforms you. Handled unconsciously, it can trap you. That's the unseen consequence. Staying stuck in the in-between. Never really going back, never really moving forward. Just floating, restless, numb. Years can pass like that. A whole life can pass like that. And that's why we're talking about this now. Because you deserve to know the truth. This phase is supposed to strip you bare. It's supposed to empty you out. But it's not supposed to last forever. The exhaustion you're carrying isn't the final word, it's the doorway. So the question becomes, how do you walk through it without collapsing, bypassing, or turning back? That's where Jung's rebellion begins. Here's the truth, Jung understood. You can't force your old motivation back, and you can't float forever. The only way forward is rebellion. Not rebellion in the loud, fists in the air way. Though, let's be real, that would feel pretty good right now. I mean, inner rebellion. The quiet refusal to keep living by a script that no longer belongs to you. This is where you stop asking, how do I get back to normal? And start asking, what wants to be born through me now? And yes, that's a terrifying question, because the answer doesn't come right away. Step 1, let the old fire die. The first act of rebellion is to stop resuscitating the corpse of your old ambitions. That means grieving them instead. Write the letter. Light the candle. Admit to yourself, that chapter gave me life for a while, but it's done. It sounds small, but it's not, because every time you cling, you block the new. The psyche can't fill a glass that's still clinging to its last drop of stale water. And honestly, who wants to drink stale water anyway? That's not awakening. That's a bacteria. Step 2, practice sacred. Waiting. The second act of rebellion is patience. Jung called this conscious waiting, not the scroll on your phone kind of waiting, not distraction, but choosing to stay in the void without trying to fix it too soon. This is where life starts whispering. A small tug toward a book you'd never normally pick up, a conversation with a stranger that lights you up in ways your career never did, an impulse to walk outside, paint, garden, write, or finally say no to something you've been pretending to want. These are not accidents, these are breadcrumbs. Your rebellion is following those small impulses without demanding they justify themselves. Pause for a second. What's one small impulse that's been tugging at you lately? Maybe it doesn't make sense yet, but it keeps showing up. Drop it in the comments. Someone else out there might need to see yours to recognize their own. This is how we build community out of what usually feels like isolation. Step 3, active imagination. The third act of rebellion is dialogue. Jung called it active imagination. It's not about daydreaming, it's about asking your unconscious, what wants to be born through me? Sit with it. Write whatever comes, sketch it, talk to it. You'll get fragments at first, images, symbols, odd ideas that don't fit neatly into your current life. Follow them anyway. Maria, one of Jung's patients, saw herself teaching children in the woods. At first, she thought it was nonsense. She was a banker, not a teacher. But she followed the image. Months later, she was volunteering in environmental education and felt more alive than she had in years. The rebellion is trusting the nonsense. Because sometimes what looks irrational is the psyche, reprogramming your life from the inside out. Remember, your ego thinks TikTok dances make sense. Don't let it be the judge of what's rational. Step 4, symbolic living. And then comes the final act of rebellion, living symbolically. This is where you stop asking, what's the plan? And start asking, what feels aligned right now? It doesn't mean quitting your job tomorrow or running off to live off-grid. Though for some, it might. It means starting small, following resonance instead of obligation, curiosity instead of pressure. This is where life stops being a chessboard you're trying to master and starts being a conversation you're willing to join. And here's the beautiful thing. Once you live symbolically, you start to notice synchronicities, coincidences that don't feel random anymore, dreams that drop hints, gut instincts that save you months of wasted effort. That's not fantasy, that's the psyche guiding you into individuation. You're not chasing, you're responding. That's the rebellion. You're no longer dragging yourself through a life that doesn't fit. You're letting your soul move through you instead. And I want to pause here to ask you something directly, because this is where your voice matters. What's one area of your life where you know you've been pretending? Where the mask is heavy, but you've kept wearing it anyway? Write it down for yourself. Or share it in the comments if you're brave. You'll be surprised how many people feel the exact same way. This is how the rebellion becomes collective. One person dropping the mask gives someone else permission to do the same. Because here's the truth. The exhaustion you've been feeling isn't just your exhaustion. It's cultural, it's generational. It's the psychic cost of keeping up illusions that no longer serve us. And the more of us who rebel, quietly, honestly, symbolically, the more cracks appear in the old system. And eventually those cracks become the doorway. Here's the secret Jung discovered. The awakening didn't kill your motivation. It killed your counterfeit motivation. That old fire you've been grieving, it was borrowed fuel. It ran on fear of not being enough, fear of failure, fear of being unseen, unloved, forgotten. That's why it burned so hot and so fast, and why it burned you out. When that fire died, it left you standing in the ashes, empty, tired, unsure what comes next. But here's the paradox. The ashes are fertile. The void you've been fighting is not a void at all. It's a womb. Something is gestating in you. And no, it doesn't arrive with fanfare or Instagram quotes. It arrives quietly, like a new pulse under your skin. It doesn't push, it pulls. Soul motivation feels like remembering. That's the truth Jung left us with. Authentic motivation doesn't feel like traditional drive. It feels like inevitability, like breathing, like water rolling downhill. It's not the adrenaline of chasing. It's the alignment of expressing. And here's the most liberating part. When this new motivation comes, it doesn't require you to betray yourself anymore. You don't drag yourself to the desk, the job, the relationship, the life that no longer fits. You don't live for the checklist. You live for resonance. And what grows out of resonance? Creation, service, beauty, healing, not because you should, not because you'll be rewarded, but because your whole being says yes. That's the ultimate truth. Awakening doesn't empty you to punish you. It empties you to prepare you. And yes, the world is heavy right now. The hatred, the fear, the corruption, the AI panic, the fractures in families and friendships. The exhaustion isn't just personal, it's collective. But maybe that's the point. Maybe your soul is rebelling, not just for you, but for all of us. Maybe your refusal to keep pretending is the quiet revolution the world needs. Because look around, the old systems are collapsing anyway. The masks are slipping everywhere, the noise is unsustainable, and those who keep pretending are burning out faster than ever. So what if the exhaustion you're carrying isn't just yours? What if it's the sign that you're tuning out of the illusion and into something more real? Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming whole, of letting your authentic self take the wheel. And when that self takes over, you stop asking, how do I prove myself? And start asking, how do I live truthfully? That's a terrifying shift, but it's also freedom. I want to ask you directly, if you stopped performing for approval, what would you do differently tomorrow? Write it down. Share it below if you want. Don't overthink it, just the first thing that rises. That's your soul whispering. The only way out is through. The exhaustion you feel now is temporary. The void is temporary. But the flame that emerges from it, that's eternal. It's not the flicker of ego. It's the steady burn of alignment. So if you're in the silence right now, if you're numb, unmotivated, confused, don't mistake it for the end. This isn't where your story dies. This is where your becoming begins. The ultimate rebellion is not running from the void. It's letting the void transform you, because on the other side, you don't just get motivation back, you get yourself back. And that version of you, the one who isn't chasing illusions anymore, the one who's no longer running on fear, that version can't be broken. That version doesn't flicker when the world collapses. That version is the flame that cannot be extinguished. Awakening didn't break you, it freed you. Closing reflection. If this spoke to you, if you felt something stir while listening, leave a comment. Let me know what this stage feels like for you. Because chances are, someone else will read it and realize they're not alone. And that connection might be the very thread they need to hold on right now. And if you want to keep walking this strange, beautiful, exhausting path with me, subscribe to the Oracle Files. This is the place where we name the things most people are afraid to name, and where we find the courage to keep going anyway. Because awakening isn't the end, it's the beginning.